morning. Good morning, GM, everyone, and welcome to another episode of FOMO Hour. Today is Wednesday, June 11th, 2025. Folks, another electric morning in joyful June, or the lovely summer of risk, as our good friend OSF has coined it. We've got the China trade deal. It might be done. CPI came in under. A lot of our coins are moving this morning. And the question, is it finally time for alts like Sol and ETH to shine? We're going to break it all down on today's show. No Farouk, he's traveling back from Paris, but we got Mando in the house. We got Stats in the house. Logan as well. Boys GM. Mando, how you doing?
I'm doing great, man. How are you?
I'm good. Another very exciting and fast-paced morning. The news has been coming in fast here today. You love to see it. We got Stats back. Market's so hot. We even got Stats to come back on with us. How you doing?
What's up, boys? How you doing? And girls in the
well.
audience, not just boys around here.
Well, we have a handful.
Yeah.
So shout out to the ladies out there who tune in every morning. Thank you for joining us. And we've got Logan on as well. Logan GM, how you doing?
Hey, good morning. Doing well. Sun shining, beautiful day. Market's looking good. Feeling good.
All right, well, let's get into it. We're not no one's making too much small talk here this morning. There's too much to dive into. I'm on board with that. So what are we talking about on today's show? We're going to get into the market report. Is this trade deal done? CPI, recession odds down to 25%. The calls for that recession seem to have been greatly overblown. We're going to talk about the ETH trade. We talked about the ETH trade for like 30 minutes yesterday, but I also want to get Stats' opinion on this as a longer-term ETH holder and bull. So we'll talk about that. The Sol staking ETFs, arguably the biggest news of the day. Those Sol ETFs likely come in the next 3 to 5 weeks. Hype, actively hitting another all-time high. We got the first Tau corporate treasury. Murad, back. Murad fully back as his downstream coins are even catching the big. We got another big Kaido airdrop and a little bit of a major drop from virtuals on ETH, but also a bit of a hiccup in there. So we'll talk about that, plus a lot more. Before we dive into it, shout out to our partners, starting with Wallet Connect. Wallet Connect is the connectivity network shaping the future of on-chain UX. If you've connected to a Web3 app, you've seen Wallet Connect. That blue logo, it's everywhere. An icon of trust in crypto, as recognizable as Visa at the checkout. If you want to learn more, follow at Wallet Connect on X and Telegram to stay ahead of what's next. And with Kraken Pro, you get full control over your layout. Drag and drop any module. Customize it all. It's clean, smooth, and built for real traders. If you trade crypto, check out pro.kraken.com. Trade without trade-offs. We love our partners as always. All right, Mando, if you're ready, let's get into it.
Who is the man, macro daddy of the land? Can you dig it?
Hey guys, so yeah, we did have a little bit of a volatile morning, let's say. The main figure was CPI. CPI is the consumer price index. It's probably one of the more followed inflation indices, and it came in slightly below expectations, which is kind of what I said I was expecting yesterday, or at least it wouldn't be as bad as people thought it would be. We've seen a bit of a rally on the back of it. Yesterday was pretty strong for macro, but and particularly some of the L1s. But today we've seen most of those hold on to their gains. ETH's around 2,800 right now. That's kind of broken out of a multi-week trend there for ETH. So it's a relatively good sign. We were kind of in that trend since let's say mid-May, early May. Solana's also creeping back up. We can get into like specific news on that, but that's kind of been the biggest outperformer, I'd say, up to 166. And then Hype, obviously at 43. So good movement in a number of the different L1s, let's say. I don't think CPI, I don't think it's like some crazy change. There has been a few more rumblings that, the Fed chair might be replaced. It's pretty difficult for the president to do that. I'd be very surprised if Jerome Powell did leave, but there was a headline yesterday, which was Bessent's being considered for that role, which I think is, relatively surprising still, but let's see where that heads. We saw some retraction of the comments from Trump and Elon, both kind of they're making up, it feels like, in the comments at least. So feels like whatever worry people had around that is seemingly drifting away. For blockchain specific stuff, I would say the main thing is what we've been flagging for a bit here, that staking ETFs could be around the corner. And we saw more concrete examples of that over the last 24 hours, in that the S1 applications for the Solana ETFs were asked to be resubmitted, all showing how they would do staking. Now the ETH ones, I think there's a number of them already submitted, and we'll see how they go in the next month. But we're in a world here where we could see ETH ETFs approved this month for staking, and Solana ETFs approved within the next few months. So there's definitely a path here for that, and we saw Solana react positively off the back of that. We saw a number of other L1s also react positively, ones with staking in particular. We've also seen some of the big, like, let's say, major meme coins have a decent day. Fartcoin up to 1.4. It's continued its move. You've seen SPX move all the way up to about $1.5 billion, which is a very strong move. And yeah, just generally feels as though risk taking is kind of back on in that bit of the market. I would say that the hype move is also in this context of DeFi also having a very good period here. We've again seen Uni, Hype, and Aave all have very good days. And those seem to be the three most loved coins, let's say, in the DeFi landscape. And it's been a good week for those. So decent across the board for a bunch of different risk stuff. But I would say that the number one headline in all of crypto is that staking ETFs are coming, and that's enough of a narrative to push ETH and Solana higher. We actually saw ETH perp volume surpass Bitcoin for the first time in many months yesterday. So it is a sign that it is picking up in terms of activity as well.
Big news. A lot of directions we can go. Maybe we pull back and talk some of the macro news a bit. So
first off, let me just jump in real quick, because I think the thing on Scott Bessent is that Powell's term's over in 11 months. So the question right now is, who's he going to get replaced with? I don't think this was discussion of Trump removing Powell. There's a big question right now of who's he going to replace him with? Because regardless what happens in Powell, in 11 months, we're going to get one of the most dovish, Trump-friendly Fed chairs in the history of the planet. And I think that's what the conversation was. And I almost think markets are, like, at some level, like, you start pricing stuff in a year in advance, but whoever's coming in is going to do whatever Trump wants him to do, which will likely mean extreme dovishness.
Yeah.
I think that's fair.
And market pricing just at 12%. So I think some people are just kind of running with those headlines a bit, but it seems like more of a job search. Stats, I'm curious, actually, reactions to this Elon fund. We were chatting about it in some of the group chats last week. Now, I mean, Elon, not only has he deleted the tweets, he's come out and basically apologized.
I mean, I tweeted about this at the time. Like, nothing he was saying served him in any way. Like, he gets into these modes, and if you like, I follow Elon sometimes I mute him, because if you don't mute him, you see every tweet he posts. But I follow him a fair bit, and he has these rants where I personally, some people disagree. I personally think he's drugged up on something, and he's angry about something, and he tweets 20 times an hour, which, as someone who tweets a lot, like, 20 times an hour is very hard to do. Like, I tweet a lot, and I tweet a lot when I'm buzzed out on caffeine or whatever. I mean, I don't do really drugs that are harder than that, but even just coffee, I start ranting, sometimes. And he was in the same mode earlier on when they were talking about the visas that they were giving to people from India and other places. That became a big issue. He was the same way. I mean, he just goes on these rants, and I think he got into one against President Trump. And I don't think he was checking himself. And of course, you come down and you kind of get back to your normal self. And these people are very volatile humans. Like, you start to say, wait, that was probably pretty dumb. And then on top of that, Trump's someone who he's aligned with on a lot of stuff. So I'm not surprised here. I don't think what he was doing, and I tweeted this at the time, what he was doing did not serve him or his companies in any way, shape, or form. And it's still, apology or not, like, when you show that side of yourself in such a public way, I don't think you're ever back on the island.
Yeah. And not only does he tweet 20 times an hour, but he's jerry-rigged his own social media platform and to make sure that all of his posts are by far the most amplified
Totally.
on the platform.
I mean, it's just like he's just like whittling down his support. Like now everybody's got something to dislike about the guy on both sides of the spectrum, but the political spectrum. But you can't, I mean, whatever. You don't say those things and suddenly say sorry and then get back on the island. That's not how strong-minded people work.
Tesla stock already totally rebounded, so they shook off the fight FUD.
They're worth more than every other car company in the world combined.
Do you think Trump is going to hold a grudge here, or do you think they're going to make peace?
Well, I think that I think that Elon's going to get pissed about stuff in the future. I don't think he's just going to go back to being entirely, entirely subservient. I think he's going to get pissed about other stuff in the future. He's a very volatile person, and this is like he's in kind of a bit more of a quiet time. And then when he gets loud again, I mean, the irony too is like when he goes on these rants, he never talks about his companies. It's just always about whatever he's pissed about. So I don't think. It serves both of them to be on each other's team. There's no benefit, but I think there was a lot of love lost.
Well, one of the drivers of the fight was over money printing. And we actually got a pretty big money printing headline last night. Mando surfaced this, that China is tapping another $1.5 trillion fund to boost home market support. So China is actively printing, it seems. So we're adding to those M2 tailwinds. Let's see if we've got an updated chart here that we can briefly pull up.
Yeah, that's just going to continue. I mean, that is not a problem that's like, oh, suddenly they're not going to do that. Like, China has a problem of massively building out its housing supply, and its population is shrinking at a very quick speed. Like, that is just a multi-decade issue. And to be clear, China property is the biggest market in the whole world, single asset class in the whole world. It's bigger than US stocks in terms of size. So you're going to talk about unbelievable amounts of money printing to go into that.
So they're not
quickly check WhatsApp, Tyler, while they're discussing this.
Okay. Yeah, it looks like the Spaces is having issues, folks. Sorry about that. If you're having trouble in the Spaces, just come join us over in the stream. I don't know what's happening with this. I'll continue to try to tinker with it during the show. The other big headline, and we'll get into SUI ETF here in a bit. I want to talk about that. But from a macro standpoint, this trade deal, it looks like we might actually have the trade deal done, or at least an agreement in principle. I'm trying to find the details here. Trump tweeted out this morning, I believe on Truth Social, that tariff on, we don't have the details, 55% on China, we're getting 10% back, says the relationship is excellent. I'm curious, are we buying that this is over? Like, are we out of the woods on this? And then I guess part two, is this a good outcome? 55% is pretty high above where things were. So, like, do we think this is the final? Any reactions to this?
I mean, it's my first reaction. The reason I think about it is because my wife actually is from Hong Kong. So she's, I guess, Chinese, and she went to Harvard. So she was kind of in that bucket of people who were called the national security risk by the president. So it's kind of interesting to say here, to see him say here, Chinese people going to the universities has always been good with me, when he was calling them a national security threat just a week ago. I think my view on this stuff is like the whole taco thing, like Trump always chickens out, was a meme that people kind of used to dunk on Donald Trump, but I think the theme there, if you get away from the dunk, I think the theme there, kind of put more nicely, is that it's been clear that Trump kind of cares about the stock market. Stock market's been very, very closely correlated with his approval ratings and his popularity. When this market, he's, I think, back to much higher popularity now. The markets have gone up. The worst he was doing was when the market tanked. I think it's like clear that he cares about that stuff a lot more than he cares about kind of the free trades or the tariffs, which I personally thought was his priority 2 months ago, but I think that's just been proven wrong. And I think the market knew that, like decided that 3 weeks ago, 4 weeks ago, even a month. I mean, we've had one of the biggest rallies in risk assets that you've had this entire century. stocks are up something like 21%. So I think the markets are basically pricing in that this stuff is not going to have huge impacts on the market. And as a result, I feel like this good news is kind of already priced in based on the signals that we've just kind of been getting nonstop. Now, who knows? These are volatile people. It could go the other way, but that's kind of my read. I think had this happened, in the market, a month ago, it would have been a huge sigh of relief. But I think at this point, the market's starting to price it in.
Yeah, and we already have a full V-shaped recovery from the tariff sell-off on our. It wasn't Independence Day. What was the? I'm blanking on what we called
Liberation Day.
Liberation
right?
Day. The Liberation Day sell-off. You can see it here.
The bad news is that we didn't get liberated from wherever we were liberating from. The good news is that no one wanted to be liberated anyway. So it's the good and the bad.
That's exactly how it played out. But I think one of my takeaways looking this morning, so CPI was good. I think the CME futures odds of a rate cut in September jumped, I want to say. Saw them over 57% now. So looking favorite outcome, we're going to get a cut in September now. It looks like some of the barriers, FUD levers have been removed. So like inflation's okay right now. The trade deal with China is being worked out. So it seems like more of a setup for clear skies. Which is driving what people are starting to coin as this joyful June narrative. And I'm certainly feeling more joyful by the day. Let's talk about the SOL ETFs. Mando, maybe I'll throw it to you. And we talked a couple impacts already. Staking is going to be likely a part of this. That's going to be a huge differentiator for both ETH and Solana. Do you think we're going to see SOL pump into this? Have you adjusted or have you been thinking any differently about trades or positioning because of this potential news here?
No, I think my gut here is that the Solana ETF is still going to be a few months away. But I don't. Polymarket has odds for all of this, right? So if you go to Polymarket, maybe we could look at it. SOL ETF, like in terms of timing. I actually haven't seen if it's been adjusted, but I still think we're talking probably about Q3 SOL ETF. Interestingly, now it's like 50-50 for 61% is by July 31st. So maybe it is sooner than I thought. I still got the feeling it would be like autumn time, but it's now 60% chance that it would be done by 31st. So December 31st is like 90%. So it really depends on a timing thing there, but I do think it's a good headline for that. My trade is still the spin that I think ETH is going to 4K. So I have not adjusted on anything around that. I think this is good for Solver for sure. This is the staking component. Like you can stake ETH and you get like 3%. You stake Solana, you get like 6 or 7%. So like as a relative thing about the ETF, this will be more attractive, I think, for Solana. But I think it takes a while for these sort of things to whir up and get AUM. That's my guess. As we saw with ETH, like it takes a long time for like the pitch, for it to go to all the different investor classes, to go to all the different wealth managers. Like this is a very slow moving bit of the industry. And I don't think you're necessarily going to see like unbelievable inflows into the Solana ETF at the start. We've only just started to see it for ETH, right? You've only just started to see decent inflows into the ETH ETF. So my guess is it can be slightly slow at the start, at least for like the first 3 months. The first day can still be strong, or the first like week can still be strong, but it can be a bit slow. But I do think this is a good narrative for Solana.
It's interesting. I think ahead of the Bitcoin ETFs, we had the huge run up, tons of buy pressure, and then it was sell the news. And I think somewhat similar with ETH, but a little bit less so. I'm wondering if the market will have corrected to a degree and just understands that just because SOL ETFs get approved doesn't mean that it's going to be massive capital influx week one. So perhaps we'll see more of a muted run into the.
Are you fudding, bro? Are you fudding? Are you fudding on the timeline?
I mean, ETH is up more this week than SOL with the ETF news. I mean, that there's some kind of signal there.
Well, it's kind of weird, It's like on the one hand, a year ago, ETFs were everything. Or I maybe have my timeline mixed up, but there was a time where like ETF flows were like, or ETF news was the only thing the market cared about. And I think rightfully so. I mean, look at all the new money that's kind of flowed into Bitcoin and ETH as a result of the ETFs. But at the same time, ETH has performed poorly. So I don't know the exact numbers, but ETH has not done well since getting the ETF. So I think there's just a bit of confusion in the market. Well, now we're at 28.35, but for much of the time, like ETH has not done well since getting the ETF. So I think there's a lot of kind of confusion in the marketplace of like, is this the catalyst we want to buy given the trajectory ETH had after the ETF? Like, how bullish is this necessarily? Like, on the one hand, I don't see how in the world it's not, given the fact that as you've been tweeting about, Tyler, the amount of inflows we're getting into ETH, but also the amount of inflows we've gotten into Bitcoin. I mean, Bitcoin's gotten like $80 billion of inflows just in IBIT. Like, it's crazy the impact of this, but still ETH has done poorly. So I think the market's just kind of confused about how to treat this type of news flow.
Yeah, and Amanda hit it, right? Like the ETH ETFs months, and now they've seen $1 billion in the last 17 sessions. It's like now you're really starting to see it pick up. And
yeah.
Of course, ETH is up significantly.
I talked to someone who's like, you should just own Sol into the ETF. Like, and granted, you can talk to someone who will give you any opinion, but I don't know. Who knows? I'm saying nothing. I'll stop.
Well, so like let's look at it. So Bitcoin, according to the DGen's dashboard here, 45 billion in net inflows since inception.
Yeah,
it's had 3.5 billion.
Yeah,
they've been around for what, 6 months less. I also don't have the exact dates in front of me. So smaller.
I think ETH is just a more difficult pitch. Like you have to consider the people buying it. Like buying digital gold actually is very easy to sell to pensions. It's very easy to sell to insurance funds even, or 401ks or multi-strat firms. Buying ETH is just like, it takes a while, I think, to really make that pitch. And particularly if there's no staking element, or there's no yield element, I think it can take a little bit longer. I do think that the Solana pitch will take similarly as long. Like, remember, these guys are going to turn around after having just sold their clients ETH and be like, actually, we've got like a faster blockchain for you, right? More yield. And
bigger world.
I actually think they might just be like, let's just sell ETH. Rather than coming in here and trying to sell something else straight away. Like, I don't know. I think it will just take a while, but I do think it's really bullish, and I think that may push Solana up to like 200.
What could be an interesting angle is if they're like the joint ETH plus Sol staking ETF, so they're bucketed together. Because I think you make a great point. How come we're just seeing the pitch for Ethereum now in the infant stages? The pitch for Sol is a little tougher, especially on the back of that, just from a pure timing standpoint. So I'm with you. I don't know price target. I guess 200 feels like a nice round number. There's other tailwinds. I mean, Bitcoin rallies, ETH rallies. I think Sol is going to move along with it. The question is it going to outperform or not? We'll see. It depends if it's an alt season or if Bitcoin's going to continue to lead the rally. There are some signs that the alts may start to move, both ETH and Sol up on Bitcoin on the week. Well, stats, I teed this up at the beginning of the show. We talked with Mando about the ETH trade for a solid 25 to 30 minutes yesterday.
Yeah.
But I'm curious for your thoughts. Some of our, like the TLDR is that we were kind of the conclusion we got to. The narrative is stronger now than it seems like it has been for quite some time.
Yeah. I mean, you also said like I'm a perennial ETH bull. I'm actually not. I own more Bitcoin than ETH. I have moved a little bit of ETH in this. So I'd say ETH is probably, if you include my NFTs, it's still a big position. The reason I'm like, I own a lot of ETH is two reasons. One is that I kind of got into the space because NFTs. That's just kind of my origin. And two, I'm exceptionally lazy. So I'm just like, I've been in this bag for a long time. Like, that's just kind of my native place. So I'm just holding a bunch of ETH. But it's not like I like to my posts. I've said this last time I was on the show, when I post like, who's your daddy or whatever, like show them who's daddy with ETH. I'm literally, it's just a meme. It's just a meme. It gets the hype people so pissed now. The hype people get so pissed if I say ETH is up. They're all like, what about me? What about my bag? I feel like I'm talking to my 4, 6, and 8-year-old boys. I say something nice about something, the other boys start screaming about why they're not getting attention. That's what the hype people are like on the timeline right now. Total snowflake behavior. But I'm used to it because I've been in this game for a while, posting stats, and everyone's saying, "What about me?" all the time. As far as my views go, I don't know. Like I feel like I don't have super strong views. I feel like the vibes. Like I think these are still like vibe-based assets. Like it's very hard to say there's any reason that cash flows support any valuation whatsoever. And it just kind of becomes a game of like, where's the FOMO and where's the positive energy right now? And I think like ETH, like there's just this Bitcoin dominance narrative that was taking over. And when Bitcoin dominance takes over, ETH is going to be one of the first to go because you have the most market cap there to pull from. But then on the other hand, like when crypto starts rallying and it becomes a bit more of like a public trade, it kind of goes back to the ETF thing. ETH is one of the best places to get exposure, and we've seen that. What is it? 20 straight days of ETF inflows, like recently. So like ETH is when crypto's rallying, when Bitcoin dominance gets to like all-time highs, and people say, "Hey, I want to get back into a trade. I want to get back into something here that isn't where the chart's not looking like Bitcoin's does." ETH is the first place they go. So. Am I like super bullish on it? I think I hope it continues to trade with the market because I think the market's going to continue to be bullish. What's the catalyst to make it? I don't know. More a $500 billion token instead of a $340 billion token. Like it's very hard for me to say like, oh, that's like we're underpriced at $340 billion for ETH. It's just like where are the vibes right now? And I feel like with kind of the DeFi focus that we've gotten with the ETF out there. It's rallying, and I'm just gonna keep holding because Mando's price target.
What we had this debate in the DMs last night, but I'm of the view that ETH is a non-consensus trade here.
I think so too.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's. I
thought the consensus ones on my timeline that I felt was Bitcoin is obviously it's consensus kind of everywhere. Hyperliquid. I would have said Altcoin because I just feel like I see it a lot, and then I would have said Sol. I agree is like a bit more like I think there's a little bit of FUD around Sol right now, so maybe that's not a consensus. But I actually really felt that ETH was a non-consensus trade. Do you see that? Because you probably have a slightly more.
This is an interesting question because yesterday Farouk said, "What is the most consensus trade?" He sent out a survey
on the back of that.
On the back, yeah. So survey. So Farouk sent this out. Said, "What's the most consensus trade?" I think on our timelines, it is 100% Bitcoin, because you can't say something negative about Bitcoin. Like, yeah, not everyone owns it, but imagine saying something negative about Bitcoin on the timeline, like you'd be a pariah. Yeah, that'd be like saying something positive about Peter Schiff right now, like or whatever dude. Is that his name? Shit, whatever the dude who's talking about pedophilia is. Like, you cannot say something negative about Bitcoin. That's just like we don't play that game. The issue though is that we aren't the people who move Bitcoin. We are not, like crypto Twitter has nothing to do with Bitcoin prices. That is a much bigger market. That is so much bigger than our bubble. Ethereum in our world, I'd say it's not a consensus trade at all. Like everyone hates Ethereum. Like people talking shit nonstop. Outside of, I'd say my world probably a little bit less because my followers are more NFT native. But again, I think with ETH, I also think that's above us. I don't think crypto Twitter matters for ETH. If you look at the inflows, like crypto Twitter matters for Azuki. Crypto Twitter, we can move the price of Good Vibes Club. We can move the price, maybe even a fart coin, So I think that is just an interesting question in the sense of, one is who's consensus within our world, but then two, for what assets does that even matter at all? I don't think hype is a consensus trade necessarily, in the sense that like I surveyed my followers, I think 60% said they don't own any. That's actually not that.
That's quite, yeah, that's like, let me put it this way.
Yeah.
If Bitcoin goes to 150K, I agree with you. I think that like that's maybe not the best thing for the timeline. We've seen it. We've seen when Bitcoin goes to 50K to 100K, like it's kind of beyond CT. If hype was to go to 100, I think the timeline would be fucking euphoric. like absolutely euphoric. If Solana went to 300, I also think the timeline would be absolutely euphoric. If ETH went to 5K, I actually don't think it would be. Like, my view is that, like, it's like, oh, yeah, okay, you got one over us again. Like, I just think about what I would see on the timeline. If Solana goes to 300, there would be, like, a huge party going on the timeline. Like, it's the best thing ever. Like, Solana's the best thing ever. Hype as well. It feels as though, like, everyone's in it. Like, oh,
I think there's been a lot of people. I think in our world, there's been a lot of people who've capitulated on ETH. I think that kind of happened over the past 4 months. That ETH has been the funding trade. I talked to a fund manager the other day, like who sold all his ETH for Sol. I think we've seen stuff like that. So yeah, in that sense, like there's nothing worse than a trade you've unwound rallying. Like that is a trader's version of depression. So yeah, I can see what you're saying. I think ETH has been the funding trade right now. So people are either like me, where I'm like, oh, like I've owned ETH for 5 years. It's up to 2,800. I'm not going to freak out because just like it's just kind of my status quo position. But I think the incremental player has sold out of it. Like that, like there's no one who's. I don't think many people are up there like being like, I wasn't an ETH guy, but I'm buying it at 1,800. I just don't think that person exists. Whereas the people who are like, I can make a lot more money in other stuff, so I'm selling ETH to buy XYZ. We got a lot of that in our world. So I think that's probably like a bit more of the sentiment you see. Although the other thing I always say is like sentiment on the timeline is the loudest voice, and the loudest voice is just one voice, but it doesn't always mean that much.
You're saying that CT can't pump ETH prices. We're pumping live on the back of this commentary. From you and
someone in the comments, Mando talking about 5K ETH already boiling my blood.
Every time Mando says 5K,
really piss someone else.
Subtle shift from 4K to 5K has made a meaningful difference. I will say that. And a quick tangent. I think our Fartcoin bulls need to take that advice to heart as well. We got to start raising the targets from 10 to a higher number. So let's keep that in mind.
The FARC, what did you say? Where's the Fartcoin price target going?
Well, it has been 10. I think we need to raise it to either 50 or 100.
I think it's ridiculous that Circle is worth more than Fartcoin.
Agree.
I'm just kidding. No one thought.
What do you think? What's your view on the consensus versus non-consensus trade here? Because it obviously lit a fire under. I feel as though I would agree that in the last 2 weeks, as ETH looks like it was about to break out of this consolidation, there's been a few more traders being like, oh, it's a trade, like all this sort of stuff. But I don't feel like it's a loved trade. What do you think are your most consensus trades that you see in your timeline?
I don't think it's ETH. I think the people who had 100 or 200 ETH in 2021 have probably sold that off. Or maybe they bought it, they turned it into NFTs. Maybe they rotated it to Sol, and now they've rotated it downstream. I think the leading ETH betas are definitely held. We've seen SPX at all-time highs. Pepe is a consensus trade. MOG, maybe not as much, but the timeline will be euphoric if MOG goes back to all-time high. I think Farouk nailed the primary ones, right? Like, I think these are the big four. Well, okay, let me take that back. Bitcoin, Hype, Fartcoin, I think are probably three of the most public CT plays. I don't know if Ethereum really is. I don't think people are holding Solana that much. Really.
I'd agree. I think Solana's lost it a little bit too, which is probably a good thing for Solana right now. Is that it doesn't feel like everyone's as bullish on Solana right now. It feels like they moved to AVAX and SUI and all these other because the gambling money is slightly not been making money on it, right?
Yeah, or they moved downstream to memes. Logan, curious if you have a take on this.
Yeah, I don't think ETH is consensus at all. Based on my timeline, I would have said Hype 1, Bitcoin 2. Again, just based on my timeline and the way that I'm receiving things, I think those are the clear leaders. Fartcoin probably deserves to be in there if you're trying to come up with a list of like 4 or 5 different coins. But even that, I would say alongside, Solana and some of the other leaders over there, it has definitely fallen, in my opinion, as far as the consensus nature goes. But, if you're looking for something that's going to rise alongside everything else, I think most people would have Fartcoin on the list. So
I
still,
think Farcoin's going to feel a lot more consensus when you're talking to Farouk and Tyler every day than it will otherwise.
The data backs it up too, right? 159,000 on hold, basically on chain holders.
Yeah, I just feel as though when I think about the big traders, the big, let's say, meme coin traders, they are all kind of in Filecoin, right? Like, I don't know, but I would pick like who's the biggest, who win all the mind share for memes. I guess it's not a Murad coin, but like it's a Bonkai coin. Is it an Ansem coin? It's a Kook coin. It's a Wiz coin. It's a Baroque coin. It's a Dip Wheeler coin. It's a base 16Z coin. It's a rookie coin. I've been bullish it. OSF owns it. Like I don't know. I look down. I'm like, if you're in memes, you've kind of been at least at one time you've been bull posting Filecoin or like are bullish.
Yeah, I think so. But retail hasn't had their chance at it. They're cut at it. So we'll see what that demand looks like, perhaps as soon as tomorrow. And then I'm very curious about SPX here. I mean, this thing is not stopping.
SPX
had a little bit.
Was it up 20% in the last day?
Probably. It's up 17% on the day.
It was like 134 or 140 when we were talking about it on the show yesterday. Jesus.
It's performing like the number one ETH beta. Like that is objectively true right now in joyful June 2025.
So what's the state of Murad? And the reason I ask that is, I'm not in his world other than the fact that I'm on crypto Twitter. And I think there was a lot of hype around him. He was kind of the figurehead of meme coins, kind of as an intellectual asset. And I think that became proven, not proven, but like at the beginning of 2025, that was just the wrong trade to be in. And it became clear that a lot of the meme coins that people thought were these stable assets were actually vaporware or just not worth a lot of money. And then now it feels like he's having a come. And I think that Murad kind of had some egg on his face, at least from a reputational standpoint, when I looked at my timeline, which maybe is the wrong one to be looking at. But so I've been surprised, Tyler, that you're like, this is a huge coin because this is Murad's coin. I'm like, I thought that guy kind of lost a bit of his glory recently. But I don't know. Yesterday I posted about ENS. I thought ENS was totally dead. And then 500 people are like, yeah, ENS is awesome. Digits are going to 1,000. So there is a community out there for everything, and I'm just not part of most of them. So you can tell me what's the state of the Murad reputation and community?
He went from main character to the most hated, single most hated. Well, maybe put Hayden Adams up there with him.
I don't think he was hated. I think he was more ridiculed.
Oh no, the pitchforks came from Murad first. And the hardest.
It's not like
remember all-time highs February, all-time highs March. Like the guy, everyone was like, this guy's leading people to the slaughter at a time where everything is going lower. There was a lot of FUD around it.
It wasn't good, but it was, and he did get caught a bit of a scammer too. It wasn't just oh, you make bad intellectual points. People did think he was selling his own tokens.
But then to his credit, he never gave up. He stuck with the mission. And now he's on his comeback arc. And it's unclear if it's actually the TikTok video watchers who are buying SPX or if it's the whales on chain who are kind of using that as the new narrative. But the reality is SPX is at all-time high. And now that his downstream coins are starting to move. So in the past day, Retardio up 50%, Lock-in up 140%, USA up 50%. So,
which one of these are you buying, Tyler?
Man,
all of them.
Of this list, I only hold SPX.
Oh, damn.
I said on the show, I've been looking at Lock-in, and it felt safe. It felt like it had a safe floor, and now it's up about 100%. But
yeah, that was an interesting one for sure. Aura had this crazy move. You see this? Up to 85 million on the Binance listing.
This is the biggest crime wick of summer 2025. Yeah. It was below $1 million.
Yeah.
And it went to 80 million in a day. I don't think we've seen. It's basically like the peanut pump. I mean, the peanut pump actually probably wasn't even this big on a multiple. It might have been up there. This is as big as it gets.
Peanut was at least 200 million, and it was on people's radar.
Around 150, 200, yeah, for sure. What do we think out of those? Mog, I don't think if you're looking for a single day candle, on the Murad coins. Like, oh my god, this is gonna quickly go. Bring out your memes. It's not gonna be Popcat or Mog. I don't think either of those are gonna. I've got like a 50% move in them. They both feel like maybe Mog gets Binance spot, maybe or Popcat gets, but I don't think Popcat's first from any list. Giga feels like that community kind of fell off, right? Or like the ones that I would really look at here are like, lock-in feels like the most obvious one, just given price. Maybe like Apu, like just like one of these other like ETH memes that can just like fucking go. And it feels like no one really liked that one because it was like a Pepe knockoff, whereas that's not a bad chart, right? I like the reason why I'm saying it is I think I'm like slightly more drawn to the ETH ones than I am to the Sol ones. But.
I mean, that ticker Bitcoin, it's curling.
What sort of chart pattern would you call that?
I mean, you see the cup and handle from
look at that handle, boys,
and breaking out right now.
I'm wary of these others. I think I didn't interrogate his timeline too much, but I think there's some explaining to do about like why he's just latched to SPX. I understand it's the one he's kind of foundationally built off of, but these like beta versions of his list, I think they get the bumps, of course, when he's front and center, like he was when he was main character. But I'm definitely wary of holding them versus just holding SPX.
So you're saying he's no longer pushing his list of 10?
No, I can't say that for certain because I didn't do any of the background.
I'm not seeing it. I mean, unless
I actually think that's good for him. That was the thing that people felt like it was going to cause the scam, right? It actually felt like if he didn't have 10, he just had like a couple, it would have been better. If he now gets everyone back into like mini, it does feel like, I don't know. Feels like that would also turn on him. Maybe not now, but in 3 months.
I do think that's good as well. But that, like him not pushing, other people not pushing, like I don't see any reason to own those coins then, really. Like I don't want to own Apu on its own,
Well, I can tell you the reason. I can tell you the reason right now. It's because it costs $1.72 per SPX token. And if you think SPX is going to double or triple from here, do you think you're going to get a higher return on lock-in at 2 cents?
Sure.
That's the reason. And I'm not saying it's good or bad, but that's why people do it. What are our SPX targets? We were chatting about this in the chat a little bit yesterday. We haven't seen a 1 billion unit bias token go above 5. So like with hit 480, I think at peak. Altcoins hit 270. The memes that have gone higher have that lower decimal, so you can buy more for your buck.
Is anyone talking about this? Tyler, you're the only person on the timeline who I see talking about this. Is there like a
what are our SPX targets? You're not. You haven't seen that?
Yeah, I'm not in the SPX target chat. I also just wanted.
What's everyone's SPX targets, guys? Let's go around the circle on that one.
I'll put that survey out onto X and see kind of where that. It would get like 70 votes. It would get as many votes, as much attention as my asking people what they thought of the Tony Awards that I got yesterday.
Yeah, I think it's bullish that not many people are in SPX and it's this high. That's basically what I think. I think that's the most bullish thing for it. I think that it can go higher if it starts to flip or come close to like Pepe. I don't think that's right. Let me put it that way.
What did Pepe get to? Like, what's 11. The all-time high Pepe?
11 or 12.
Sorry?
Yeah,
12?
just over 10.
I mean, I feel like I don't know this to be true. Pepe, of course, is evidence of it, but like the ETH coins just feel like, when the money does start to come in, the ceiling is a little bit higher. I don't know why I feel that way. Of course, Pepe sort of bears it out, but I think 5-6 for SPX. Why not? I know I mentioned yesterday, I don't own any, but I do like these, these kind of community narrative coins. I think it's the best one standing at this point in time. you keep price going up, and then more people believe in it, right? I could see it. I could see it becoming. I could see it flipping Pepe. Why not?
690 is my first target. No one asked me, but I'll share it. $6.90, and then we'll look from there. That probably takes. You probably need Pepe to move 40%.
In what world is that 690? You think ETH has got to be like 10K? I feel like for that to do a 6x from here.
It's more like a 4x.
Is it? Sorry, maybe I'm confused.
SPX is at $1.70, and I'm talking.
Oh, $1.70. Yeah, sorry. Wow.
If anyone needed their signal to sell this token, I think we've done it.
Let's. I mean, look at this. If you need a signal, I mean, it's going straight up. So let's a little bit of euphoria. It's at all-time high. It's going straight up. So take all this with a grain of salt. Stats. I know you got to go. One other question I actually did want to get into. Part of the ETH discussion. How are you viewing your ETH held in your punks? And I guess part two. How do you think your NFT followers like? What I'm getting at. Do you think betting on a punk is a good bet on ETH, or do you view it differently than that?
Back when I was an interesting Twitter account, I used to do a lot of analysis where I would I would look at kind of different kind of statistical trends in NFTs. And one thing I found with punks and really with everything is that they're very momentum driven. And I think it's related to market structure, but the single best indicator of if the floor price is going to go down today is if it went down yesterday. It's a very which is not true for S&P 500. It's not true for Bitcoin. For those assets, yesterday's price has no statistical relevance to today's price movement. You can rally off, but NFTs, when they're in these funks, just go down. And I think it's related to the way that listing and buying happens. So right now it's just kind of it's just a low energy trade. I think a lot of people, it's basically gone down ever since the announcement of the takeover from Node. I think there were, I knew nothing about that until I bought a punk. When I bought my third punk, cause I kind of wanted one. Someone pinged me and said, "Hey, do you know anything happening?" That was when I was like, "Oh, there's something coming up." But I think there was noise about that so this is more of a short-term perspective, but I think we're still kind of unwinding people who wanted to own it for that trade. My view on punks though is I'll be honest. Everyone in crypto has their asset that they feel kind of a real personal connection with, the thing that got them into the space. For some people, for a lot of people, it's Bitcoin. For me, it's punks. Punks were the reason I got into crypto. I just kind of like punks. I think they're cool. I like the story. I like the long-term story. So I own 3 of them. I have 3 kids. That's just kind of my view. I tell people who are a bit younger, a bit more into the game, that punks maybe aren't the best asset for them. I said this when Easy bought it. I'm like, dude, if you're trying to optimize every dollar you have, it ties up money. If you're trying to play quick trades, they're slow grinding, you don't get that many incremental buyers per month or whatever. So I think it's a harder asset to hold for people who are A, trying to optimize every dollar, and B, people who are a bit more fast with their dopamine needs. This is kind of a set and forget trade for me. And that's kind of the type of person I think it makes sense for.
I think that's a good explanation, good logic for someone to think about buying this. It's something you need to go put in a cold wallet.
I want to be more. I'm just not someone who shills assets, even though I like punks. I'm not someone that's just not my personality, and I'm even less likely to shill something I own because that's where reputations are destroyed and just my own kind of eccentricities. I feel weird doing that. I do want to say one thing. So someone asked above what's going on with meme land, and I think there's definitely a lot of frustration. So before I go, because I got to go in 5 minutes, I do just want to give a quick comment on that. Yes, I do still work in meme land. I've always just been a huge tweeter, regardless. When I worked at Proof, when I work in meme land, I'm always just tweeting. And like I just said, I kind of keep the assets I own or that I work for out of it, unless there's a distribution need or a story that has to get out. But the big things going on with meme land, meme strategy, meme strategy is the public company we bought, 2440.hk. Ray bought it. But that's taking up a lot of time trying to figure out how to turn that into something that benefits meme coin. The second big thing is meme pay, trying to figure out how to make that model work. Because I think the initial model of just a credit, there are better ways that we can make that more effective. And then there are also like tons of like the engineering teams working on a couple products that hopefully will get out sooner than later. A couple JVs that we're working on, and then deals like that. Those are kind of the three things. And we never talk about, like with JVs, projects, or deals, the last thing you want to do is talk about them until the bow is tied. I think most projects want to talk, like say, oh, something big's coming, and that just leads to trouble. So for us, it's just always about working on them. And then when we think it's something but it takes time, and it takes work. But there are things cooking in the background. It's certainly not a thing where the team is not like 100% working on that stuff. So I think it was Boomer DGen who wrote in the comments, asked about meme land. So I figured since I got your stage, I'll give a quick 1 minute on that.
Yeah, thank you for doing that. I've seen folks kind of asking about meme land a bit over the last weeks and months. So good to hear. Some big projects being worked on.
Yeah. There are definitely some pitches being thrown in the background. It's just it's hard to make the pitches connect. So you kind of want to make sure that you're in that place before you start bringing them out.
Yeah, definitely. Well, we wish you the best, and the mainline team on those. Certainly, will be following along. And thank you for joining us. I know you got to run here shortly.
Wife at her college reunion, so I got to take the kids to school.
All right, kids are still in school.
Sorry, camp.
Camp. All right.
Science camp and golf and tennis camp. Those are the two.
Awesome. Sound like fun camps.
Yeah, I think science maybe less. I think I'd get bored there, but golf and tennis, I could spend a few hours on that.
Our kids don't start for another 2 weeks, so I'm running Camp Dat here.
Oh, damn. All right. Well, multitasking. Tyler, we've always seen you as the efficient guy who can get a lot done, so not surprised.
Logan, I saw you. Yeah, if you need to run stats, go ahead. We'll wrap up here in a couple minutes. Logan, I saw you nodding along during the punks discussion.
Yeah.
Do you have any thoughts?
Man, well, I just, former Punk owner, don't have any exposure to it at this point in time, but of course still love them as an asset, have the personal connection, but still like as a long-term asset, believe in them as well. And all this talk about Ethereum, last few days, I think if you see ETH run, you see Punks run too. Maybe not, outpacing ETH or something like that, but it just feels, what is 44? That's like 100 and something thousand, 123,000. Yeah. I mean, we're still a long, long way off from all-time high and all that stuff. But I think you start to see any sort of euphoria around Ethereum, the native asset, you get a little bit of a shine on Punks as well, right? Because it's kind of, as far as owning, something on top of, or you want an ETH beta, if you want to call it that, right? Like there aren't too many better options that have the shine, the nostalgia, the whatever, insert XYZ attribute for CryptoPunks, a major point in Ethereum's history. So I like Punks. I would love to own one right now. Not really in the cards. But maybe we need a couple meme coin hits before.
So need you back in the trenches and hitting some 100Xs. Yeah. You can run up that Punk budget real quick. I tend to agree with you, and rightfully or wrongfully, I think a Punk is a fun way to hold ETH and bet on ETH. And historically, the floor has been pretty strong in ETH. Well, if ETH runs to 4K in the next 3 weeks, is the Punk's floor going to dip in ETH terms? Probably would be my gut reaction. Probably goes down a bit, but then once ETH consolidates, I think you have a real chance of leveling up. So it's to me, it's a bet on ETH, but it's more than that. You've got the collectible narrative. It's more scarce than Bitcoin, so you've got more outs for ways that it can pump beyond just ETH, which I also like.
Yeah. And I actually, the stats is making the point that, this is not if you're in need of or seeking instant liquidity or the dopamine that comes with the trading of meme coins, et cetera, this is not it. But I actually like that component of it quite a bit. It provides you that level of ETH with the potential to go higher and not feel, you don't feel too bad about the floor here. You're not getting rugged overnight on CryptoPunk.
Yeah, you don't have to sweat it. And I think it's, for meme coin traders who make big wins, rotating to something like Bitcoin, rotating to a Punk, can make a lot of sense in a way of you not just going to give it right back and just to puke back all your gains. So I've seen folks do that. Logan, I think we got 1 or 2 minutes left. There's some kind of big news out of Virtuals. They launched their first agent on the Ethereum mainnet. You want to give us just the quick TLDR? I think this was a big story today.
Yeah, so the tweet you have up on the screen is the best summary, in my opinion. It's a public good smart contract audit agent. You know, all the agents do different things. This is a smart contract auditing agent, but they launched it on Ethereum mainnet as opposed to Base, where all the activity, or most all of the activity, had been taking place up to date. Called Iris. You see that little trailer video. It's kind of fun if you want to watch that. A little bit of I don't know, controversy is the right word, but someone else launched an Iris token or agent that was eerily similar. I can't remember the exact word. Closely replicates the branding. That's the word they use. So some folks were a little confused, of course, put their points from the Virgin system into this. Some, money, of course, behind it as well. The team came out this morning to try to address that and provide the points back via refund, of course, virtual not being done. So tough. It's tough when you make these announcements. People can do things like this. It's not the first time we've seen it, but good at least for them to be refunding the points.
Well, there's been people flocking to virtuals in this Virgin's program as of late. So there's been a lot of new folks, probably felt like some newbies were perhaps taken advantage of here. But I think what people who are participating in this ecosystem need to know, there's going to be a whole lot more of these copycats going forward, because it obviously worked today so much that virtuals had to step in and do a refund. And they say here they're not going to do it again. So I think the DYOR, be on alert going forward, is a strong message.
Yeah, they definitely don't need to do it again either. I don't think that part should be controversial. People need to DYOR. I mean, it's a harsh lesson to learn, of course, but that's the game you're playing here. You can't cry, every single time you're making the decisions. So
they're not refunding money; they're refunding points. So let's also be very clear. So people, they earn these Virgin points. It's a bidding system about basically how much token allocation you could potentially get. So it's the points that were refunded. It wasn't the actual funds being spent. But we'll see. And we'll see how this Iris token performs. I know there's a lot of eyes on this one, and certainly more folks in this ecosystem. So perhaps we'll be reporting back on that tomorrow. But as for today, fun discussion, fun chat. Good to have stats on. Going deeper into the ETH trade. Folks, I think we're going to go ahead and wrap it up there. We're at the hour mark. I want to thank our listeners as always. I want to thank our partners. I want to thank my co-host, Logan. Thank you for jumping in these last couple days. Folks, we will be back tomorrow at 10 a.m. Eastern. Until then, go make it a beautiful day.